Hope it all works.
Why wouldn't it work?
I don't know. Why would it? But I kind of forgot we did this on Monday. Like, it feels like a different eon.
Yeah, different era.
It does.
Yeah, I know.
Like, so much has transpired between now and then. Like, I drove up to Michigan, and then I drove back.
And
then I stayed up late last night watching the Bengals, despite my better judgment, and they actually did pull it out against the 0-3 Jaguars. I mean, it was close.
You guys you're like 3-1 or 2-1? 2-1, right?
3-1.
3-1.
Yeah. They won't be playing Sunday, so that would, obviously, because they're playing Thursday. And considering the Jaguars aren't all that great, the Pittsburgh isn't all that great, and we lost to the Bears, who aren't all that great. But
actually, I'm surprised you beat Pittsburgh, and I'm delighted that you beat Pittsburgh.
Oh, I think everybody is. I mean, that's like the one game of the year where everyone's like a Bengals fan. It's just like when the Browns play Pittsburgh or anybody plays Pittsburgh, you're just by default a fan of that team. And
I'll let my brother-in-law know about your opinion of the team, but it mirrors mine, so really it's it's not going to be a shock to anybody.
Yeah. Shocks that aren't whatever. Xcloud is now available in more regions, especially. I think I heard from everybody in Brazil about how happy they were when I just randomly tweeted it out. But apparently Xbox is huge in Brazil, so go Brazil.
Well, you guys can enjoy the terrible performance of Xcloud. Enjoy. I've never gotten it to work well. I literally just tried it again yesterday. It's just unplayable.
Were you trying it? Have you tried it on your? Did you get in like on the alpha on your console? I haven't tried it yet.
On my console, no. Maybe I have. I think I am in that little group or whatever, but I haven't looked at that. No, I've been trying it on the PC. I mean, this is like wired controller, wired, Ethernet, and it's just not. It just doesn't do it.
That's why I'm curious if it's any better on the console, because then Xbox. Oh, I mean, not that Microsoft doesn't own the PC or whatever, but they own the whole front end, back end, middle ground, except for I guess the pipe between.
Sure.
The whatever.
See, that's what I got to do is test it on a different connection. I always sometimes feel like there's something about this connection that doesn't work well with this stuff. But what do you call it? Stadia works fine. Luna works fine. Is that what it's called? Amazon Luna?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I haven't figured out if this is a bug of the software yet. But so Microsoft made a big deal about the Photos app. First off, I don't know. I have some. They moved the cheese, Paul. I know. It used to be. I had it down to a science where I could crop images really, really fast with that app, and then they buried it under another menu.
Right. Yeah. By the way, that's the mantra of Windows 11. Everything requires an extra step.
Yep.
You can't. If you it's like we have to declutter our house because people are coming over. So you put everything in drawers and stuff, and then you're like, "Hey, where are my keys?" They're like, "Oh, they're in the drawer." So it's like an extra step. That's Windows 11. It looks better.
It does.
It's clean, but you can't do anything. And this is literally, I was just writing about this when you said, "Hey, you ready?" I was like, "Oh my God, right. It's a work day and we're doing a podcast," which is like every day normally. And I was not expecting it, but I was in the middle of writing, and I was just working through this exact thought. This is tough. And I want to be clear. I actually give Microsoft some credit for making these difficult decisions. They're not always going to be right, and they'll have to backstep and so forth. But it's going to be hard to find a good middle ground between explosion of UI everywhere and then like a simple thing.
Yep.
But in the middle that kind of meets everyone's needs, Well,
if you think about it, Microsoft has to design Windows to work for 1+ billion users, which everyone can be like, well, Apple does that too. But the problem with Windows is that it's been around for 30 years. And so
that's right.
You got to take in consideration the people who have been using it for 30 years, but then also like what the new flashy thing is over here. And so to your exact point, they end up with decisions. It's like, okay, do we put it under another menu so it looks better? But then we make people angry who have that workflow of just whatever.
They have muscle memory, basically, right? Look, I'm not going to pretend to have the answer to this, but I feel like the ultimate end game here is, and I'm going to publish an article, maybe not today because today is really busy, but tomorrow at the latest. That's basically like, let's fix Windows 11. And to take more of a constructive approach, like it's easy as a critic to just complain about things, but kind of think through like, okay, but what would you do? Like, what would you advise Microsoft? And I think ultimately what we're working toward is we really need a switch that switches between like full on every option power user mode and then what they're doing right now in Windows 11, which is the simplified Windows 10X thing. Because there is no way, like 1.3 billion people, to solve everyone's needs in one UI. It's just not possible. And unfortunately, once you take that step, now you're going to run into the obvious thing where people are like, okay, but if you can do that, why not just now you need like a dashboard. And by the way, I'm telling you this. You work at Stardock. I mean, you guys are implementing this kind of thing right now. Like, you need a dashboard where a power user can go in and say yes, no, yes, no, whatever. You want to be able to save that thing. You want to be able to bring it to a different PC, sync it ideally. But although I guess Microsoft is kind of walking away from that for some reason, it gets muddy. I don't know. When 10X was a thing, I always said they could bring this to Windows 10, big Windows 10. But what they should do when they do that is offer it as an option, like you can flip back and forth.
Yep.
So those are some ideas. I mean,
yeah, no, you're spot, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I was like, hey, I get a chance to go build software that does that kind of stuff. That's why I jumped at it because again, Microsoft did a good job of building Windows 11. I honestly think it's a fine OS, but the compromises that they made are fine. But the problem is that they didn't give an outlet. So as an example, the right mouse click on the taskbar, they could have kept it simple if they would have given you an option to go back, or the taskbar on the top, or that was the step they didn't implement.
There's a lot of troubling stuff in Windows 11, which kind of tarnishes the goodness. I think we talked about this. I think the ability, like, it ships with these 4 buttons on the taskbar that are all superfluous and unnecessary.
Can we talk about Teams on the taskbar for a second? Because
that's one of them. So
this is
let's get to that in 1 second.
Yeah.
You cannot right click those things and say go away. You have to go into the settings app to find the place where you do that. And it's like, that's
intentional.
Bald-facedly trying to screw people over because they don't want them to get rid of something, Yeah, so Teams, I don't know if you saw my little tweet about this yesterday, but so the more I use this, the more I think about this. That bizarre Skype announcement out of nowhere the other day. Exactly. We're like, we're back, baby. We're here to stay. I was like, okay, here's a great example of that same switch. This thing should be called Chat. You should be, if you sign in with a Microsoft account, you get Skype. Teams makes no sense for personal accounts.
I agree.
No sense. It's one of those things I took a kind of a wait and see attitude on, and as annoying as it is to me to have to run 2 apps because I've got people on Skype and people on Teams. These are 2 different things. They just are. There is no world in which Teams makes sense for consumers. It just doesn't work.
Here's the thing and the reason why I agree with you is I brought up a new machine yesterday. And fresh install, clean everything, and like Teams pops up, the consumer Teams. Right. But I didn't recognize, because it has the same logo, but it's like white instead of.
Go into Task Manager and figure out which one you have to kill from starting automatically. It's like they're, anyway, it's.
So I brought it up, and it pops up, and I'm like, oh great, I'm just going to log in to work. And I logged in. It's like, no, you can't. You have to use your personal account.
Yeah, it's literally a Microsoft account only thing.
Yeah, and then like I get why, but life would be better if they I agree with you, called it Chat. If they log in with their work one, then it goes that route.
Well, think about what Meet Now is in Windows 10. Really, it's a front end to Skype. It's a simplified. It's kind of like what Windows 11 is. It's a simplified version of this other thing. It's designed for impromptu chatting. If you do have a Skype contact list, it shows up. But you could call someone's number. You could send them. There's all different ways you can reach them. The point literally is to just meet now. And honestly, I never used it. I never wanted to use it, but that makes some sense to me. This thing that's sort of Teams and not really Teams, and then if you have a work Teams, you have a different app anyway. What's the difference? You can't mix and match. Even if they were in the same application, you still get 2 instances of this thing running. Just run Skype too. By the way, for whatever it's worth, I said this the other day to somebody. I had a call with a friend on Skype. I actually don't use Skype for video call that much anymore because we use Teams all the time. And it was awesome. Like they've added all these features for like, changing the background and doing all this stuff. It's actually a really nice UI.
But why? Like this is the thing. Like they came out and signaled like Teams for consumer. This is
I know.
But then the most befuddling thing that has happened in a while for Microsoft is that Skype blog post, because it hit and all of us were like,
we're like what?
Like what?
Like, what? Like exactly. By the way, attributed to no human being, just the Skype team.
To no human being,
which could be a human being for all we know at this point. And yeah, it's like, hey, we're back, baby. It's like, okay. Did you talk to the rest of the company? Because I don't know if you saw what they're doing, because it's all Teams.
Like I have to imagine that Panos is sitting in his office just scrolling Twitter and just like,
oh yeah, it's the Captain Picard face. like what? Who told him he could publish this?
We just had this messaging around the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are literally going to release an OS in which we get rid of Skype. But just to be clear what that means, Skype is not even on the disk. Skype is not part of Windows 11. It's not there. If you want Skype, you have to go find it and download it. It's in the store. You can get it from Skype.com. But I mean, it's not even. Well, let me make sure before I say this.
I don't.
Yeah, WordPad is still in Windows 11, right? WordPad, but Skype, no, there's no Skype. Unless you upgrade, when you have Skype already, obviously. But I mean, as far like base install, you buy a new computer, you're not getting Skype. It's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, that is.
I know.
This is
morning. This is like, it's like you slapped me in the face to wake me up and then said, "Here's something to get angry about."
I'm not even angry about it. It's just more of the.
No, I know.
The lack of consistency. Like if they're going to go in a direction, just go.
I know they're talking right,
but
Microsoft talks a good game when it comes to consistency. There's really pretty videos of little glass elements hitting a pane of glass, and it looks like it's going to be really pretty. But it's not super consistent, and just from a UI perspective, there's all kinds of inconsistencies. This actually, you know what? Everything we've complained about here, or just discussed, however you want to frame it. Ultimately, what this all boils down to is they only had this thing publicly testing for 3 months. Yep. There's no bit of feedback that anyone gave that is going to be in Windows 11 when it launches. Now, you may have provided feedback and then that thing did change, but that had nothing to do with you. That was already happening. Like the feedback that insiders have provided so far is going to go into future versions. Or future updates, or whatever you want to call it. But this thing has been just. Don't let the door hit you on the way. It's just happening, and there is no precedent in history for a major version of Windows with, by the way, major UI changes being developed in that time frame ever. This has never happened. Crazy.
If there's any background noise, it appears that my neighbor decided today was the day to grind out a stump. I'm not quite sure if that's accurate, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. We have a problem in this area that might extend to where you live, where a lot of pine trees are dying from some kind of disease.
Yeah.
So our neighbor at one point had to remove 8 trees. We have 5 trees in our backyard that we should be removing, and the only reason we haven't is because it's really expensive. And when we talk to the tree guy, he says you don't have to worry about these things falling down. The trees that fall down are the live ones, in a storm or whatever. Like the dead trees won't fall down. So I'm like, okay, it looks terrible. It looks like we had a forest fire or something. But anyway, we had a neighbor two doors down who one day a bunch of ribbons or something appeared on most of his trees. And this company, I have never seen anything move this slowly in my life. Instead of one terrible day of grinding, we've had 2 straight weeks of every single day some bit of grinding occurring. Like they cut it down, cut them into chunks. There, there's tree bits everywhere over this guy's yard. Like, I don't know what the heck is going on, but I mean, it's like, I assume they bid the lowest or something? Because this is like the slow-mo express. So it's like a water torture thing that never ends. It just
it's a slow water torture that never ends.
Yeah, kind of like this podcast.
Wasn't going to say it.